Stonehenge and the Schoolhouse of the Future. A lecture by Jonathan Barlow, P. April 2014. Constructed, according to modern archaeologists, between the blue stone erections of 5,000 years ago and the Sarsen erections of 4,400 to 4,200 years ago, the Neolithic and Bronze Age structure we call today Stonehenge, 8 miles or 13 kilometers north of the edge of Salisbury Plain on the United Kingdom Isle of Great Britain, is alike in architectural schematic to the conical, thatched, wood girder, wattle and daub roundhouses of Bronze and Iron Age Britain, as well as to the Iron Age wheelhouses further north on the island in Scotland, such as the Atlantic roundhouses of the Orkney Islands, like those at Doneringgill on the Isle of Skye, Dun Carloway on the Isle of Lewis, Piro Wall on the Isle of Westray, Jarlshof in the archipelago of the Shetland Islands, Moorstein and Castle Bloody on the island of Shapnessay, as well as others standing alone, aisled roundhouses throughout Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Bronze Age Orkney, Scottish inhabitation. The Neolithic farmstead at the Knap of Howar on Papa Westray may have once been joined above sea level to the Westray Island culture that erected the links of Noltland, Moorstein, and Castle Bloody, and dates from no later than 5,700 years ago. While Skara Brae on mainland Orkney Island's west coast consists of 8 stone structures, closely clustered as in a community of dwellings, was occupied from roughly 5,180 to 4,500 years before now. However, whereas few of these other simple standing stone menhirs or complex stone proto-cities possess perfect symmetry, let alone archaeoastrological use, the site we now call Stonehenge did, and thus it is indicated it may have served as a form of religious ceremonial temple for the region's religion of the time. What we can deduce of this religion we cannot therefore detach from including the architecture of Stonehenge as indicative of their general mind state. So, from the by now ruins of Stonehenge, let us reassemble the original schematic design, as it was intended by its earliest builders, that we may understand something more of its possible use as a structure for study of the skies. The general consensus now is that the altar stone, set into place around 4,600 years ago, carved as a single 6-ton sandstone, erected upright to a height of almost 2 meters, served as a location for ritual cremation ceremonies commemorated at that location from some 8,500 years ago onward, with possibly originally Scandinavian area cultural influence on the earliest farmers who, around 5,500 years ago, were clearing the wooded landscape following constructing a causeway enclosure and long barrow tombs nearby. Around the altar stand 5 trilithons, consisting of twin stone posts topped by a horizontal lintel stone, all of dressed Sarsen Welsh sandstone. Approached from a gap between them, opposite the altar, facing toward the northeast. The pair of trilithons on either side of this opening are the shortest, being around 6 meters, 20 feet tall, followed by the middle pair of slightly taller height, and then the single trilithon behind the altar, facing toward the southwest, standing at its maximum some 7.5 meters, 25 feet tall. A half circle of 30 upright, 1 meter, 3 feet 3 inches tall Saracen stones, capped by 30 lintel stones, surrounds the 5 major trilithons, opening towards the southwest, where the opposite half, necessary to complete the circle, is absent. The fact Stonehenge's southwest to northeast axis of symmetrical orientation aligns to the sunrise in midsummer now may in fact be only coincidental, due to the fact that some 5,000 years ago or so, when it was initially erected, the exact orientation of sunrise on midsummer may have been located along the horizon elsewhere than where it occurs today. The changing of sunrise and sunset locations over the eons and many millennia being due to the precession of Earth's polar axial tilt, the so-called wobble, causing the gradual zodiacal shift of the 24,000-year-long solar day, known for being opposite the direction along the tropical equator from the order followed through the signs per season annually. The pentagonal arrangement of the 5 primary trilithon stone gateways, however, cannot be considered coincidental, and was definitely intended on the part of the site's builders to commemorate a ritual entryway into a sacred space, ascending toward the foot of the altar stone. That this pentagonal nature was intentional cannot be argued, considering that in no design has there been even once speculated a 6th such Saracen trilithon blocking the northeast entrance. This entrance to the 5 gates stands upon one leg of the pentagon that is formed with one of each of the 5 trilithons at its 5 corners. The altar stone stands slightly closer to the largest of the 5 trilithons than at the exact center of this regular pentagon shape. Both the positioning of the entryway and the offsetting from exact center of the altar stone imply to the speculative researcher the presence of an individual participant within the ritual space as being requisite to complete the pattern in full. The pentagon, comprised of 5 triangles with interior angles of 54 degrees, 72 degrees, and 54 degrees, joined together such that all the angles of 72 degrees share a common central origin point, is one of the only 3 regular polygon shapes in flat, 2-dimensional space, the other being the triangle and the square. As such, it shares with these 2 other polygons the honor of being one of the only 3 shapes of the exterior faces of the 5 regular, so-called Platonic solids in 3-dimensional space, these being the tetrahedron, octahedron, and isosahedron of triangles, the cube of squares, and the dodecahedron of pentagons. The relation of the pentagon to the pentagram, and thence as a symbol of the nature of man as a 5th element, may be glossed over here as being too complex and also too well established to be necessary to cover. Instead, we shall be looking at the relation of the pentagon to itself by establishing from a pair of pentagons, each inscribed within a complete circumference, connecting each of its corner points to its next adjacents in an arc length of 72 degrees, or 1/5 of 360 degrees, an overlapping pair of circular circumferences in the format of a Vesica Pisces type of arrangement. It is worth noting here that the pentagonal alignment into a Vesica Pisces format shown here, established by linking the midpoint of one pentagon to one corner point of another, and of one corner point of the first pentagon to the midpoint of the other, establishes a Vesica Pisces format model wherein 1/5 of the total area of each circle overlaps with the area of the other identical circle. As we can extrapolate the pentagon from this 1/5 ratio of shared to independent area in this model, so too may we extrapolate a triangle from such a model where 3 circles overlap 1/3 of their total areas each, and likewise also a square from such a model where 4 circles overlap 1 quadrant of 1/4 the total area of each. Thus, in the same manner, the triangle promulgates into the tetrahedron, and from thence into the stalactahedron, or hypertetrahedron, as a symbol of 3-dimensional space, and as too the square unfolds into the cube, and thus also the cube into the tesseract, or hypercube, as a symbol of 3-dimensional space over the single additional direction of a 4th temporal dimension. So too does the pentagon unfurl into the dodecahedron, and hence from there into the 120-cell hyperdodecahedron. Likewise, just as the conjoined at perigee rather than nested at apogee model of the stalactahedron appears as 2 tetrahedra, symbolic of 1 tetrahedron over time, and the tesseract as 2 stacked cubes, symbolic in Kabbalah of 1 cube over time, or a hypercube in 4-dimensional space. So the 120-cell hyperdodecahedron at perigee casts a shadow of twin overlapping pentagons alike depicted here. As a tetrahedron shadow is a triangle, or square, and a cube's shadow is a square, or hexagon, so likewise is the shadow of the dodecahedron a pentagon. Next, let us examine the use of such a hyperdodecahedron's basic shadow as a twin pair of 1/5 total area overlapping pentagons in the format of an architectural model, alike how the ancient Celtic Druids pictured their use of the Stonehenge site. In this depiction, we see the overlapping twin pair of pentagons are arranged along a central vertical axis between a pair of separate pentagons on either side along a horizontal axis. The midpoints of the outer pentagons are collinear to the midpoint of the shared area of the conjoined pentagons in the central position. In this model, we see the same shape utilized as a floor plan for a 2-story architectural structure. Seen from directly above, we visualize the 2nd-story floor and all the walls of the structure as semi-transparent, and the positioning of furniture being the primary method of identifying one room from another by use. On either side of the central 1st-floor promenade walkway and 2nd-story balcony overlooking it are the twin pentagonal floor plans utilized as shared open space, as libraries for storing books, convertible into working studio spaces, such as for practicing physical arts or musical instruments, on their second stories, and as living quarters on their first floors. From an angle facing exactly 180 degrees opposite the preceding depiction's direction of vantage point, we see the lower floors of either living quarters are divided into 4 rooms and an entrance hallway, with a spiral stairwell leading up to the second-story dojos above. We see, of these remaining 4 equal triangular spaces, 2 are allocated to male and female restrooms, 1 to a kitchen and food preparation area, and the last to a bedroom and personal recreational chamber. Behind the second-story walkway, overlooking the central first-floor communal area, between the twin-paired dojos, is a pair of wide, bent stairwells. Although, in the 3D model walkthrough presentation we are about to see, this structure is depicted as entirely above ground, in practical application it would be best located inside a hill, so that only the front part of it, depicted here along the lowest-most side, would be visible, and the rest would be buried underground. Please enjoy this walkthrough of my 3D rendered architectural model, based on use of the pentagon format, tracing its origins back at least to Neolithic Stonehenge some 5,000 years ago or more. Peace.
Mani mani padme